modern treasure pointed to an even more they felt like they were standing on the edge of something truly otherworldly. As they lifted their safety lamps high and crept carefully into the dark, it dawned on them that they were likely the first human beings to ever set foot here. But that didn't mean something non-human hadn't gotten there first. O'Dwyer's found something in the dark. A huge figure curled into a crouching position, hiding its face. It was made from stone, like an enormous yet incredibly detailed statue of something almost human, but not quite. The petrified thing had two great horns on either side of its head, twisting into spirals like that of a huge ram. Word of the giant frozen monster hidden in the bottom of the mine soon made its way back to the foreman, and then back to the mine's owner, one Sean O'Malley. If it were anyone else, perhaps this news would have been taken to the press immediately, and the Foundation would have taken control of the situation just as quickly. But Mr. O'Malley was no ordinary mining magnate. He was a member of the Molly Maguires, an Irish-American secret society whose members were predominantly coal miners in Pennsylvania. The Sleeping Stone Giant, and conspired to keep it a secret between them, as secret societies have a habit of doing. Though the Molly Maguires were disbanded less than a decade later, they were all sworn to secrecy on the Giant's resting place. Until, of course, a descendant of Sean O'Malley, his grandson Ian O'Malley, was chosen as a prospective agent of the SCP Foundation. The Foundation doesn't just let anyone join their ranks. They perform an extensive background check on all prospective agents, both to find out that they're capable of rising to the challenges of the job, and also to detect any affiliation to enemy groups of interest. It was during this background check that O'Malley's subterranean family secret was discovered, and the land above the old mine shaft was bought up by a front company owned by the Foundation. The Sleeping Stone Giant was finally in capable hands, and in keeping with standard procedure, a research site was built above the Giant to gather data and keep an eye on things. At the time, the anomaly was considered extremely low risk. Its containment file read, SCP-1179 is apparently dormant, encased in the bedrock under research site. Apart from simple monitoring and standard research safety protocols, no additional containment is deemed necessary at this time. But, of course, those simple containment procedures would soon be updated. In 1962, the town of Centralia, Pennsylvania had a trash problem. There were 8 illegal trash dumping sites across the town, and to combat this issue, the town council opened up a huge landfill in an abandoned mine shaft. You'd think this would be enough for the moderately sized town, but humans have a tendency to produce a lot of trash, and they soon filled up the new landfill too. In order to address the issue, the town decided to do a controlled burn of some of the garbage. It should have been simple enough, but those who lit this garbage fire didn't follow proper safety procedures, and ended up accidentally igniting a seam of anthracite coal. This was like lighting the fuse to the world's largest stick of dynamite, and the fire soon coursed through the long abandoned mine tunnels. When the fireball finally reached the Sleeping Stone Giant in his dark pit, the beast woke up. In that instant, an otherwise uneventful day quickly became a brutal bloodbath. Researchers walking through the base felt a monstrous rumbling beneath them. Heat sensors were burning up and seismic readings were off the scale. Something was climbing up towards them. Suddenly, an impossibly large sword speared its way out of the floor, killing everyone around it with an immense blast of heat. The newly awakened monster went on an underground rampage, almost completely destroying the research base and killing nearly everyone inside, before retreating into the honeycomb of coal mines and caverns in the area, igniting even more anthracite coal fires. The Foundation needed to step in before things really got out of control. At present, the Foundation couldn't properly administer standard area construction protocols for Keter-class SCPs, so they instead designated the mines, caverns, and surrounding countryside as Area 179, and dispatched mobile task forces to try and contain the beast rampaging in the Centralia mines. But much like the fire that started this whole mess, the beast proved much harder to control than initially imagined. All 5 of the expeditionary teams sent to apprehend the monster failed, and many team members were slaughtered in the process. From the terrifying accounts of the survivors, we have a vague idea of the nature of the beast below. No pictures of the creature exist, and exact descriptions on the beast can vary. Whether this is because the beast frequently shapeshifts or because it has some kind of cognito-hazardous effects on those who view it is unclear. The most frequently reported characteristics of the creature are its immense height and the extreme heat that its body exudes. Many report that the creature's body seemed to be formed of a mix of hardened lava, pure fire, and burning smoke. The beast measures over 30 meters from head to toe, with shoulders over 8 meters wide. It's commonly said to have 2 huge ram-like horns and a weathered, bearded face. The beast has been compared by some to the Norse mythological figure Surtur, the giant guarding the frontier of the Norse fire realm.
Today is pizza
However,
day,
the actual age of the
so
creature
come and
seems
get
to
your
predate
pizza.
these legends by a considerable margin. Dating of the strata...
Hell yeah. Pizza. Let's head to the fucking cafeteria, dude. Hell yeah, buddy. Let's head to the fucking cafeteria. Get something to eat. As you can already tell, it's the next day. The pizza was good yesterday.
Closer, and they appeared to be heart
Let's
tissue
smoke some weed.
filled with pumping veins. Dr. Gazzelli ordered Herrick to take a branch for testing, and when he did, the tree began to bleed. When he looked down, he saw that the worm-like creatures that covered the ground were now crawling up his legs. Ignoring orders from Dr. Gazzelli, Herrick fled from the active zone in terror. As he left, Dr. Gazzelli caught something in the corner of Herrick's body cam footage. A long, white hind limb disappearing behind a tree. Back in our normal dimension, tests on the sample Herrick collected yielded more upsetting discoveries. Genetically, the trees were identical to humans, the trunks were human bone, and the leaves really were made of human heart tissue. Fascinated and just a little bit horrified, Dr. Gazzelli authorized further expeditions into 3989-A. This time, though, Agent Herrick would be accompanied by another D-Class, and both would be armed with handguns and protective body armor.
So I've seen some comments about how I went from being a bald Frenchman to a hairy French.
As it would turn out, this expedition would be even more horrifying than the first. As the two T-classes explored the active zones to collect further samples, they found that the worms were responsible for the ossification of the otherwise non-anomalous olive trees. They consumed the wood little by little, and deposited human bone matter in return. Herrick and his companion also noticed that these trees were beginning to bear fruit. Dr. Gazzelli ordered Herrick to collect some of this fruit for testing, but when they attempted to remove the fruit, it burst, releasing more worm creatures. It seemed that the converted trees acted as incubators for their egg sacs. Before the duo could return with the samples they were able to take, the creature that had been spotted on Herrick's body cam during the first mission finally appeared. It was huge, with long white limbs, and no facial features except for a huge mouth. It grabbed Herrick's companion and literally ate the top half of his body in a single bite, before dropping his legs to the ground. This horrifying beast, and the many others like it, would later be designated as SCP-3989-2A. Herrick pulled out his sidearm and shot the creature several times. The creature ignored the bullets, though, and charged Herrick. The feed from his body cam cut out soon after. Both men were declared killed in action, and in recognition of his sacrifice, Josiah Herrick was posthumously reinstated to his old position in the Foundation. Job well done, Agent. Dr. Gazzelli, meanwhile, prepared for the next mission. This time knowing of the clear dangers present within the Bone Orchard, Dr. Gazzelli recruited the help of MTF Zeta-9, aka the Mole Rats. 3 members, referred to as Charlie Team, were...
When am I gonna get tested on next? It's been a week, basically now, since I was, you know what I mean. Look, fuck, how long is this gonna last for me to not be tested on? I'm happy I'm not getting tested on, but I'm bored. I want something to do, bro. Like, I'm bored. Like, crap.
Sent into the anomalous zone, once again remotely directed by Dr. Gazzelli. They were equipped with experimental ultrasound technology, so they could scan the fruit of the trees within 3989-A without breaking any and incurring the wrath of 3989-2A, which seemed to act as sentries for the trees. Early on in their journey, they found the body of Agent Herrick crucified against one of the ossified trees, his skin covered in mysterious symbols that were likely of Sarkic origin. While we don't have time to fully explore Sarkicism, that will require a video explanation all of its own. All you need to know is that it's a dangerous religious cult that worships flesh and disease and has close ties to similar dangerous anomalies, like SCP-610, also known as the Flesh That Hates. People familiar with that SCP will note eerily strange similarities to some of the things the mole rats were about to encounter. As Charlie Team explored, they saw a huge number of 3989-2As observing them with eyeless faces from between the ossified trees. They pressed on until they discovered what seemed to be an entirely new kind of tree within the Bone Orchard. SCP-3989-2 were huge trees made out of what appears to be enlarged human spines in place of a trunk. The smaller twigs on the tree were made from heart and lung tissue, and the whole thing was covered in what appeared to be human amniotic sacs. Charlie Team attempted to use their ultrasound scanners to discover the contents of these sacs, but one of them exploded in the process, releasing an entirely new variety of monster. From the sacs emerged the larval stage of SCP-3989-2B, smaller humanoid monsters with no faces, no sensory organs, 2 pelvises, 4 legs, and an exposed spine. Suddenly, Charlie Team could feel a horrifying Sarkic presence around them, which one member of the team described as being like someone grabbing her liver and giggling in her face. As the various monsters of the Bone Orchard began to converge on the team, the voice of the Sarkic prophet of war and the hunt, Oruk, began sounding in their ears. He was beckoning them to join him. While Charlie Team fled from the active zone, Dr. Gazzelli felt increasingly drawn into it. He heard the voice of Oruk, and he liked what he heard. Little by little, the workers of Area 126 were losing their minds, manipulated by the Sarkic power of the Bone Orchard right next to them, day after day. They were no longer loyal to the Foundation. They wanted to serve their new Dark Masters. The fourth and final expedition was led by Dr. Gazzelli himself. He took a band of loyal followers and one non-believer on a quest into the active zone to find an Orkian temple they believed was hidden in the very heart of the Bone Orchard. Once they were inside, Gazzelli and his loyalists murdered the non-believer as a sacrifice to their new master. They carried on until they eventually found what they were looking for. A giant stone temple resembling an Aztec ziggurat, dubbed SCP-3989-4. There they also the sky darkened, and the team was lifted into the air, their hearts suddenly pulled from their chests.
Let's have another join.
Only Mercury was left standing, running for safety. He was cornered by Katerina, pulled his gun, and the footage cut out one last time. SCP-4971 Nabla had been discovered, and it was one of the most dangerous beings the Foundation had ever encountered. An interview with Anna Christian, now in Foundation custody, revealed that the creature was sustained by rituals, all magical rituals of any kind. Human sacrifice gave it extra power, but it derived strength from everything, including the Foundation's many magical logs to contain entities. Stopping all operations would weaken the creature, but would also endanger the Earth countless times over by the potential release of the other contained entities. It was unkillable. It was near impossible to contain, and it was searching for a way out into the world. And it was only a matter of time before it found it. The good news is that there is a reverse ritual, but the price is high. The last appeal of Bifi contains a reverse incantation that seals the portal to SCP-4971, but it requires a human sacrifice as well, and the cost increases exponentially. The Foundation investigated and discovered that the cost would eventually increase to the lives of every living being on Earth that had not already been converted into the beings inside SCP-4971.
This is not a cat. It's a catchy looping hook.
The SCP Foundation was faced with an impossible choice. Here was an incredibly powerful being that could end the world, and the only two ways to stop it both posed an unacceptable risk to the world. The Foundation met to discuss their options, and came up with a new esoteric classification for the object. Cernunons. Objects classified as Cernunons can be functionally contained, but the Foundation cannot achieve this due to logistical or ethical reasons.
Within, one of the teams
SCP-001. Is it a testing? No. Follow me and I'll show you. Whatever. This way. This way. Keep going. Keep going. Keep on going. We're near there. No, this way to the peanut area. We need to go to the other side of the facility. Let's head there. This is where you'll be staying now. Down here. The new courtyard. Hell yeah. This is your room here. So, a pool table. Your VR and controllers you have to share with people. Like share with SCP humanoids. Guard standing right there. This is for safe SCPs. What easy to contain. Bitch. Get out of my room. Get out of my room. Out. I don't want to kill you. Just get the fuck out of my room. Out. Hell yeah. About time that bitch left. Okay, so I only have my Bluetooth speaker. So this is my room, huh? Nice. I serve other SCPs. I don't mind it. Let's go to the courtyard.
The creature had no head, but a large circular structure
Smoke
covered
some
with
weed.
ancient glowing symbols. Whatever it was ancient, all-powerful, and deadly. The team scrambled to get away as the glyphs on the creature burned white hot. Anyone who touched it was burned. Anyone who looked too long at it felt their optical implants burn out. The symbols on the creature were indecipherable, but one word was clear and printed in English: Emerson. Site-13 was from another world, another timeline, where the SCP Foundation evolved into something horrible, ruled over by Elliot Emerson. It tortured and captured its beings, and eventually killed most of them in the horrors of the incinerators. When an escape threatened to destroy the facility, Emerson successfully activated the device that removed the facility from their world into ours. Of course, as any avid follower of the SCP Foundation will know, there's far more to the story than this. Emerson may have been the start of Site-13's problems, but he was far from the end. It's the mission of the century, a daring rescue into the depths of one of the most dangerous locations in the multiverse, Site-13, otherwise known as SCP-1730. When the impossible Site-13 was first discovered, multiple mobile task forces were sent to plumb its depths, and none returned. They were greeted to a labyrinthine nightmare, littered with deadly cognito hazards, escaped SCPs, and mysterious, murderous leeches. Some were trapped along with the civilians they were sent to rescue. Others were killed or changed in unimaginable ways.
Isaac, aka SCP-001. What's up? I need you to experiment with this new SCP we got. For me. About time. I've been waiting for action. I really want to get experiment. This one. Go in and